Do you need to have a niche if you want to be successful as an author on Substack and out in the world? And over here on the dark side of Substack, where us artists post our innermost feelings and our poems and our short stories, the word niche kind of makes me a little bit triggered because that's a business word. That's for all the weird yuppie dudes who go to coffee shops and they're like, "What's your niche?" I'm writing about tech in the modern age and how AI affects us. Or, it's for people who are into politics or educational or entertaining content that is direct. But as fiction authors and poets, our messages are indirect. And so this idea of niche needs to be expanded on and kind of rethought for us because it isn't something that we need to totally throw out. But if you follow what the people who commonly tell you what to do to grow on Substack say, then as a real author, you're going to want to kill yourself and give up. And I've seen countless people delete their Substacks and implode while thinking about it. And so first and foremost, I always have to say at the start, you should never change what you want to write. If you want to write Bigfoot erotica, and my God, we need you right now for the Bigfoot erotica renaissance. There are housewives right now in Kansas and Seattle and Edinburgh who are twitching right now because they've read everything on Amazon. And I should know, if you want to niche down on that, you have my full support. But it doesn't, if you want, you should write whatever you want when it comes to your art and your fiction. And you shouldn't censor yourself for the people who you think can't handle your work or who you think are too dumb or for some ideal of what you think you should be doing to become a full-time author faster. And so I wanted to give that caveat to help ground us because I am going to be talking about things that will help you grow faster and help you get readers and certain mindsets, but you need to stay grounded in your own artistic integrity while grappling with some of these things, because it can cause analysis paralysis. And so, as you guys have been kind of hearing me say time and time again, but not expanding on over on the YouTube channel, when I look at many of the authors behind me, the average bibliography is 10 to 20 novels. There are exceptions like Mishima or Balzac, I should say, who wrote 50 novels. Then there are other people who wrote 2 or 3 novels. But we can all assume that we'll get to that 10 to 20 novel mark. But what started to blow my mind was, as I've been kind of tackling, and now I've read dozens of authors' bibliographies in full, is that many of their works are the same style and skeleton told over and over again. The same themes, similar characters, similar places, which is varying plots and characterization, happen time and time again. And over time, they refine their skills. And as personal events happen to them, like Dostoevsky when his father dies, or when he gets sent to the work camp, or when his first wife and his brother die within 3 months of each other, you can see these things happen in his life, or when he has this kind of big Christian Orthodox revelation. Each one of those things eventually combine to make up, the masterpieces at the end of his life. But all of his works are very similar. The same with Cormac McCarthy, David Foster Wallace, and many other authors that I talk about here on this channel. Like, I could make a whole video walking you through entire authors' bibliographies, but I hope you trust me on that and can see that with authors that you know. And the reason I think this is that authors realize that, first of all, that this is a crazy game and it's a very hard game to get good at. And when you look at someone like a professional athlete, which is a great example to use because we can watch them. They are all playing, let's say, the game of soccer or football. The pros are all very good at everything, at shooting and kicking and passing and headbutting. I don't know what the hell they do out there. But what separates certain players from the pack is that they have specialties, which most of the time correspond to their position. The forwards, or whatever they call, are better at offense and shooting. The defensive dudes are better at, interrupting stuff. And throughout their entire career, since they were 6 years old, some guy said, you're going to be a forward, or in football, you're going to be the quarterback. And very rarely does someone, in the middle of their career say, I'm going to go from being a running back or a forward to the goalie. And it's because the skill level has gotten so high in sports, that you have to focus with immense effort for decades since you were a child on one style of play, on one position. And once you master the position, then you get to show your eccentricities out there at the pro level. And I kind of feel like something is happening that's very similar with us authors, that what we are sharing with others is our perspective. The themes that we like to talk about, the things that we care about, don't manifest out of thin air. They are from our early childhood experiences, our traumas, the things we love and hate, all of that. And eventually they are refined and reinforced. And because we are thinking people, artists, we are most likely more sensitive and have been kind of contemplating and letting this stuff ruminate and grow in us since we were very young. Many of the things that I write about and care about are the things that I've been attached to my entire life. I used to go skiing every weekend with my dad, Saturday and Sunday from December to April. We wouldn't miss it. And I would ski alone, from a lot of the time. And what I would do, and I just was something I started to do, was I would go out into the woods, tree skiing. I would be out in the woods and I would just sit down. I would just like plop down and maybe take my skis off, maybe not, and just sit in the woods. Cause dude, I'm on the side of a mountain right now. This is sick. I would just look at the birds. And I had no idea what Taoism was, or Chinese wilderness poetry, or the phenomenology of ontology, spiritual ecology. None of that meant anything to me till 15 years later. But I started doing that. I fell in love with it. And then when I figured out that there was a rich tradition, I somehow just slipped into it. But the themes of isolation and nature, I'm not an only child, but I have a sister that's much older than me. And I was basically, told by my parents, go play by yourself. I was isolated. I enjoy it. Lone wolf, whatever. These are themes that carry forward. The mystical experience has always been a big deal in my life. And so I've been training at that since a young age. And then as I got into high school, like many of you guys, and college, what did I do? I reinforced that. I started smoking weed. I started doing psychedelics. I started spending time alone out in the desert. I picked a sport, cross country, where I could run alone out in the desert. And all of my writing, whether it's dealing with nonfiction, fiction, poetry, has always dealt with all those same things, even before I knew what I was consciously doing. And the same is true for all of you. And if you do not realize the trajectory you are on, then you need to start journaling and doing character development, personal development, and deep contemplation of your life, and figure out where you are at in space and time, where your divine journey and purpose is taking you. Because I feel like many of the authors behind me, if you look at their life, and I've been to their archives and studied their life, they were all heading in a certain direction and at some point realized that their perception of reality was unique and really cool, and that they needed to write it down and that it was important. And they then started to believe in it. And so for many of us, for a while, we are just playing soccer. We are maybe playing our position, but we're trying to get good at all the different skills. But eventually, when we reach the pros, what we are going to be asked to do is no longer just play the position, but do it in our own and unique way. And so instead of using the word niche, I want to change that to the word for us as fiction authors and poets to trust. If we want to build an independent audience and we want them to eventually subscribe to us on Substack and buy our books and support us, yada, 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 they're going to need to trust us. Because speaking of niches, what is my niche, everybody? If you go look at my Substack right now or my YouTube channel, in general, it's writing and it's reading. But I talk about, basically every other booktuber only talks about reading or writing. They have a booktube channel or an authortube channel. I'm combining both on the same day sometimes. Same with this Substack page. I have content like this, which is talking about how to grow your audience too. I have all this different type of content. And maybe it's preventing me from growing. But what I realize is it's not, is that it's helping me build trust with people because I'm being authentic, because I'm not niching down and just focusing on one thing. Because I remember when I made like 200 Cormac McCarthy videos, I made like 150 in a row without covering any other author. Everyone in the comments, I'd get emails like, "Are you okay? You're obsessed with Cormac McCarthy." And I was like, guys, this is all information I learned like 8 years ago. Like this is all just rattling around in my brain because I have a weird memory. I can just go on and on about this stuff. So because I have transcended a niche and I talk about these things, what you guys are here for is not to learn about Cormac McCarthy or whatever. Some people are, but rather because you trust, because I've built it, my perception of things. You want to hear my thoughts on this video or that, or this book, or this part of writing, because you trust me, hopefully, maybe. And it's the same with authors, that what's actually happening is that we build trust with them. And eventually, after we build enough trust, we go read some of their first novels. We read posthumous or unreleased early novels, or their short stories, or some of these things that aren't as good. But because we want to see and experience more of them, we will get through some of the rough moments. If you've made it here in this video, I've kind of gone on some mini tangents, but you stayed because you want the content that you know, because hopefully you trust me, that I'm going to deliver. And so there is a lot of ways to look at this, and we're going to look at it from many different angles. But one that I mentioned in, I think, my video over on my new Literary Renaissance channel is that it takes anywhere from 10 to 20 problem solution cycles where someone comes and they want to be transformed or entertained or learn something from you, and they have to go through that process 10 or 20 times with you. Whether that's on Notes, on Substack, or on any other social media platform, they have to interact and feel like you've given them something 10 to 20 times before they ever even consider trusting you. And so I wanted to throw that number out there because now I want to create a bridge to another idea. So I know people who are closeted, like, they're gay and they don't want to come out, or they have these certain perceptions of the world, or they're scared to reveal a certain part of themselves. And they're scared because they think they're going to get pushback from people. We've all been there before. We've tried to do something, and our mom and our friends and everyone's like, oh, you really want to do that? You're going to be a writer, Johnny? But now I want you to think of, I don't know if you guys have these in your country, but over here in America, especially where I'm at, down here in Arizona, we got some fucking wacky religious people. Here in my hometown, I live in a small town outside of Tucson. Sometimes one of the churches or whoever, they'll come and hold signs like, you're all going to hell, and shit like that. So what if I decided I wanted to get out of the car? I parked the car and I walked over there and I was going to try and convince them to become like pagans or something. Do you think that would be a good idea? Like, would anyone ever consider that? The people who are out there at the like utmost extreme of like Christianity, let's say, would you ever consider trying to convince them otherwise? No, you just drive by and you're like, okay, that's what they believe. Would you try to convince me that books and writing aren't important? No, because you know that I care about it. I built an entire persona and I have all this weight behind it. You wouldn't even try to talk to me about that. And if you tried, you'd be like, okay, this is useless. And it's because I believe, like those crazy Christians, I believe in what I am doing. And so we are talking about this word trust. And so for people to trust you, you have to be resolute and believe in what you are doing first and foremost. Because I remember in times in my life when I used to say, I remember back, in my early 20s, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a writer, or like, I'm a writer. And people would smell blood. They could see the insecurity. Well, do you have a book out? Do you have this? And now if someone asked me that, I was like, dude, hell no, dude. I'm killing it on Substack.com, dog. A book to get pimped out? You think I'm a hoe? I'm ready with the responses, and like, they'll be like, what? Like, I'm ready. But I remember when I wasn't, and it felt like everybody was attacking me. And now I know people who are cynical and put everybody else down. But when I tell them about myself, they grit their teeth like, that's nice. Awesome. And so many of you guys are in that non-trusting category. And it's really easy to be there when you have no validation, right? You have no validation of a bunch of people who like your work yet. Even though people sometimes say, oh, Right Conscious sucks at writing. I've had plenty of people who I trust who actually read the style of poetry that I write who are like, damn, dude, that was really good. Like, I see what you're doing. I think like years from now, you're going to be like really contending with some of these people who you idolize. And it's like, oh, okay, thank you. But if you don't have that, like 5 years ago, I was writing, the same type of poems and I had no one to tell me that. I would, and so I was still a little bit insecure. But to build trust with others, you're going to have to become a true believer in what you are doing. And what that actually means is a believer in what you've been building since a child, your perception of reality, which most likely has been shit on by many different people. If you are an artist, if you are sensitive, or many of these different things, there is a very good chance that you've been told no or looked down upon or not been in a supportive environment your entire life. And trust is so important because our mission as writers is to get someone to spend hours with our perception. That's our ask. And they don't get to vibe with it usually. I mean, they kind of hopefully get to, but they have to think about it. They have to grind through it. You know, if I have a friend, he makes music, you know, rap music, kind of ephemeral stuff. He sends me a new song. I don't even think about listening to it. I just listen to it because I could, like the other day he sent me one. I was cleaning the house and I was a little bit stressed because there was all this stuff I wanted to get done because I was taking a trip and I was like, you know, leaving, and I turned it on and I enjoyed it and I tapped into it. But I have people all the time send me the writing like, Ian, I need you to read my stuff or I'm going to kill myself. And I'm like, dude, I can't have any more thinking added to my plate right now because that's all I do. I'm maxed out. So we may lose someone in the literary renaissance tonight, but we're making big asks of people. And to make that ask requires that trust, because there's a subsection of people, I don't know who they are. They'll just read anything. Like, you know, I have a friend and he's here on Substack. He just reads anything from everybody. And I eventually realized, and see, I mean, he's my friend, but he just doesn't do anything. He doesn't have hobbies. He just comes home from work and just sits and reads and hangs out. He has unlimited amounts of time. But most readers aren't like that. Most of us are very selective. And so you guys got step one. To build trust, you have to believe in yourself and what you are doing. Okay. Fake it until you make it. Figure that out. Step 0 is figure out that orientation that you are taking. And then when you figure that out, you can start in this new process of what we could call niching or branding, which I know, like, those are triggering words. But I want us to reflect, because we are readers, on the word brand. It doesn't mean at its core, you know, right conscious branding or the Nike symbol or something like that. It means the symbol that we used to put on cows. We used to brand animals. And if you and I are, let's say, ranchers, and we come across a cow and it's got no brand on it, we have no association with it at all. So we'll probably just take it. We have no association. It means nothing to us. It's just a cow. But if it comes over and it's got a W on it, and that's Williams cow, and we love Williams, that's our BFF, then we're going to go give the cow back, you know, herd it over, tell Williams, hey, your cow's over here, dog. Big dog Williams. But if it's a J and it's John's cow, and we hate John because it's like a Taylor Sheridan Yellowstone show, then we're going to go kill that cow. Or we're not going to give it back to John. We're going to be like, we don't like John. And we all react the same way about brands, you know? We all have negative and positive associations with brands and with people who online are just brands. And in person, most of the time, are brands. The only time someone isn't a brand to you is when you are actual friends or in a relationship with them and can reach that level. Because if you and I are friends, then you can kind of dive into all my idiosyncrasies that I don't necessarily share on this channel. And I know I'm kind of a ranter and I overshare, and you guys have basically heard a lot of my, you know, innermost thoughts, feelings and stuff, but there's actually a lot I haven't even shared yet, because I feel like it might be a brand disruption, and I feel like I'll get fired from my job instantly. But what you've done and what you are doing online is like a brand, a symbol on a cow to people. And right now, if you are nowhere, then you're just a random cow, and you're just wandering in the field with tens of millions of others here on Substack who no one has any association with. But as you start to put your stuff out there and kind of go through the tactics that I've been talking about to get people to start to read your stuff, then they're going to build a container for you, because that's what people do. People just don't say, he's an artist. People don't actually separate the art from the artist, if you don't know. People like Cormac McCarthy and Thomas Pynchon are branded. Cormac McCarthy became successful because over at Alfred Nump, they put a whole marketing team on him to market his works and rebrand him as this cowboy when he actually wasn't, so that women would fall in love with that and like that, and that men would feel like, oh, who's this rugged dude? That's what blew him up. Thomas Pynchon, who's never done an interview, has been branded as the reclusive genius. And if you look at the marketing and how the publishing companies push him and how people talk about him, if he spoke, he would lose that. It's better that he isn't speaking. As Vince McMahon says, monsters don't speak. Same with geniuses. And so now that we know that people are going to put you in a container, what container are you going to show them? Because especially at the start, you can't show them everything. Well, something that would maybe be a good idea is that you should brand yourself, niche yourself, whatever it is, and make people trust you, because that's what the brand is. People trust the brand. You trust that you're going to get something from it or from this person. So you should make people trust you and show them the side of you, which is being authentic. You're just choosing what side to show and lead from the front with, that relates to your fiction and your poetry. I have different aspects of myself that don't relate and are antithetical to my nature-oriented spirituality stuff. And sometimes that comes out, but it's really not important. And so I want to kind of walk you guys through this with actual examples here on Substack. And so if I go to Josh Datko's page, so let's say I hear that this dude does poetry on tape, that this Josh guy, he's reading poems. I'm like, okay, wow, he reads poems to people. That's cool. So this is a guy, if I'm looking immediately at his profile, it says cassette poet, currently taping bitpunk.fm, American anti-war veteran, sailed in a submarine around the world, then hacked some computers. The future is analog. Then I look at his profile picture. We have this serious face. So it seems like this dude is kind of and I already know about him, but what I could tell is, okay, he's this anti-government type figure who is into analog kind of technology, and he's doing live poetry. He cares about writing. He's like kind of performative. And then if I kind of watch through this video and I see him, let's see.
And if you want to,
oh wow,
say hi.
This dude's kind of intense now. Look at all this distortion. That's cool. And so then I'm like, okay, well, what's he up to? So I go to his page. And then I see more live poetry. I see anti-war poetry, media poetry, live performances, cassettes. And so then I start watching. So then this is what people do. Okay, an analog poem. I see this photo and then I read through it. His stuff isn't targeted. And I know Josh isn't necessarily like targeting people, but his stuff isn't targeted at Lululemon unconscious women or men who just want to grill and chill. He's kind of speaking to the fringe revolutionaries, and that's why he's successful. I know Josh. I've talked to Josh, and Josh has many different aspects of his personality and knowledge that he's not sharing on his Substack that he just as easily could. But what Josh is trying to do with his Substack is get people to think about technology and also get into analog media to get his free cassettes, which we could say are his novel. Like those are like his big works. And so he's built a brand around the endpoint. And the endpoint is that he does cassette tapes that have poetry on it and talk about technology amongst many other things. But everything on the Substack leads to that. And it's very wide. Josh has nature poetry and other stuff on there too. Like he does a lot, but it's leading toward this thing. So you probably know what your novel is about, or like what you're doing for like your paid Substack, if that works out. Like you know what's going to be over there. And so you should write whatever you want, but you should magnify and section out and pin and push people toward the stuff that they're going to have a positive brand association with that will gain trust for them to eventually ascend to your paid product or whatever you want them to go and do, even if it's free. Like if you want them to come to your writer's workshop or, do whatever, they will do it. But you should have, when you're kind of working with this, some end goal in mind, which is the big work, which is, these legacy pieces that you were contemplating. And if you're not working on one, then you could do something that's free. You could lead people toward your 5,000 or 8,000 word short story that is complicated. You can show them and magnify easier stuff that's in the same ballpark, in the same kind of universe of this perception that you're pushing, this thing that you are working on. Now we're connecting all the pieces. This unique style you have as the forward on the soccer field. Whatever that is, you're pushing it and magnifying it. It's that simple, everybody. That's what you need to do to be successful on here. It's as simple as that. Understand and acknowledge that to be good as a writer, that you basically have to write with your perception and become the master of that and make it interesting to people. That's what everyone else did before you. And that perception could be huge, as we see like with Thomas Pynchon, but it's still a slice of reality. It's still a slice of consciousness. Acknowledge that, figure out what it is, and then build around that, because that's who you are and that's authentic. And so I'm just thinking of random people right now. Like I've been meaning to look at Will Price's page for a while. So someone cool I know who's on here, Will Price. Let's go see what he's up to with branding and with all of this. I know that he has some books out, which I'm going to be buying soon. So I'll zoom this in. Will's profile says, all is remnant and shadow made for fullness and light. Poet, essayist, teacher, musician, and aspiring human being based in Florida. My mission is to cultivate a meaningful, abundant life that calls others to the same by word and deed. And so I'm getting that Will kind of is a nice guy, like a cool guy, that he cares about words, and he kind of has, I see he has a suit on, kind of has this classical point of perception. And it seems like it's light. And if I look at this pinned post, tragic event horizon, okay. So I click on his page. Let's see what happens. And then look, he has a nice description. Poems, essays, and short stories that create transformation and dynamic dialectic centered on the abundance that gifts of life and art have to offer. Okay, cool. And so here we go. We have a pinned post. We have a bunch of pinned posts right up here and the most popular. So I could get straight into Will Price's best stuff. So like this is a poem that I've read. As a child, I could create mountain ranges of grass-bladed anthills. And there's me commenting. But I could click around here. And from what I am seeing from Will, immediately I'm getting triggers. Like if I'm around Moby Dick, he's writing about Moby Dick. If you look at a lot of these things, it's very classic, sonnets. And so if I was interested in more high level aesthetic modern poetry with kind of a classical bent, boom, I'm in. And then I would start scrolling and I'm seeing that Will Price, look how active this dude is, bro. This dude's posting every single day. He has a poem every day. And here he is. What the hell is he doing? What the hell? I don't even know what this is. So here we go. So now I'm interested. Look at this background. This dude's got Twilight, bro. You team Edward or Jacob, Will? So here I am. Let's watch.
So it began just with rhyme scheme as the chiasm, not the word. If anyone's ever used self, we here delve. I, needing discipline, reveal the formless.
So already, guys, in a scroll, this dude's got an hour and 46 minutes of him reading and talking about his poetry. In a scroll.
To discover the meaning of art.
Sorry. Then as I scroll down, what do I see? So then I see that. I'm like, damn, I like this classic dude. So I read a lot of his poems. Already, guys, in this scroll. So from the top right here to a week of his work, I already have seen all this. And then he's got a book. I would if I would have watched the whole video. But if I just did what I just did, I'm just like, this guy's kind of interesting. I might subscribe right now. I'm like, dude, this is a lot. I'm going to come back to this. Then I start to read. Then as I'm cleaning, I listen to him read some poems. And I'm like, you know what? I like some of these. I would like this. Or my wife would like to hear some of these. This seems kind of cool. I want this on my shelf. It's only $9. $9? I can afford $9. Boom. Will just got paid. Will just earned a fan. And so let's keep rolling. So now I'm just right here on my page. So I see Laura. So we know Laura, but amateur writer and painter located in Melbourne, Australia. Okay. So then we see her photo. Okay, this is kind of trippy. Okay, we have another trippy. Her name is Pathological Rumination. So I'm like, okay, what's this? The Empty Room. So it's already trippy. I'm not an easy person asking if tasked with writing about the empty room, which becoming consumed. If I were consumed by the empty room, it mustn't be. So if I was trippy and wanted like thinking stuff, then suddenly I would be consumed in this. So then let's say I don't even read that. You know, most people might read something like, okay, it's cool. Like, who is this girl? Like, why is she writing like this? I go to her page and I'm like, you just don't get my bug art. And so this is a post that she just released about her page. I enjoy psychopaths and chubby, ugly, old autistic men. Yes. That's how it starts. You see that? Then she signed it. Like that's her manifesto that she's starting with. That's great. And so if I'm into that, then I'm getting that Laura is kind of talking about some weird stuff. And if I sit like we all do, but if I sit and read this, which I'm not going to run you guys through this, but I just looked through this on one of those jump cuts, I would literally, if I read this, know exactly what she's about. And I can make the decision if I wanted to proceed further with reading her stuff. And it isn't a joke that I know who Laura is. I know who Josh is. I know who Will is. And they have, all over 100 subscribers. That isn't like, that didn't just happen. It's because they've built this net and, you know, are also active in doing other things for people to fall into. So, I mean, I've already covered Benno stuff before, but we could do Benno, who's got 245 subscribers, including me. Very active. We can already see, look at this art, that it's going to be artistic, that it's going to be trippy. New, born, read at dawn every day. Waking, we exit ourselves out of the womb of sleep and death. Like, Benno's fire. So I'm already in. He's calling himself a solar poet. If I'm looking through this, he's once again got a very high aesthetic, just randomly scrolling like I'm a rando. Look at this. Look at how he's done it. And then if I actually go to his page, he has it all very organized up here. He's simplified it from the last time I saw it. But we have a podcast which I was on. Everyone go check that out. But he has an awesome chat, music, poetry, essays. I mean, he's got a lot going on. And that's why I pay Benno every single month, because I enjoy his work, but he's very active and he's doing a lot. Like, I appreciate that I've went and listened, that he does, like, you know, cinema club and like these random things. He's doing a lot. If I want to interact with Benno, which I do, like, I have the chance to do it. And for him, it's like basically free. I don't even think you need to pay. But because he's given me that opportunity, that's why I pay him. Because I'm like, you know, he really is doing a lot. So then we have Stephanie. So then Stephanie, she's talking about law school and reading. So then I click on Stephanie. Okay, what's Stephanie up to? 362 subscribers. Look how active she is just in the last little bit. She's talking about writing. She's talking about all the stuff she's doing. You can automatically see just through vision and not reading that there is an aesthetic here, that it's kind of more whimsical, dark, artsy. She's sitting here reading. She's doing, you know, reels here, which is different. And then if I was interested in that and I looked at her links, bro, she's got a very active Instagram, YouTube, and X account, and very active Substack account. If you wanted to get into her writing and what she's into, which is more on the classic meets whimsical meets slice of the taboo, then you have like 8 different channels to fall into with her work, with plenty of books and other things. It's not hard. While I was filming, I actually stopped filming because there was a knock on the door, and it was the mailman, and I got a package from Josh at Bitpunk. I trust him so much, speaking of trust, that I gave him my personal address so that he can send me cassettes. And he is growing every single week, or every single month, I should say. This is a reinforcement of our trust, of our bond. I am continuing to go down the Bitpunk rabbit hole because I am constantly reading his poems and like seeing what he's doing on Substack, because he does live performances. But I also get something physical in the mail. He's thinking about this problem from a whole other level. And over the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to pay off huge for him. And so I actually sat down right before this and I looked at like 10 other profiles, but it was kind of meandering and long, and like that's for a different video. But what I basically found was that everyone who was successful, everyone who had readers and had activity, they were all showing a certain core part of their personality and really pushing that forward. And many of them had some ascension piece, whether it was a book or something like that, for people to go to if they were aligned with that. And so I could go on and on about this, but I want you to look at your profile right now. And if someone went, what would they think that you were into? Who are you? Because I read random notes on Substack all the time, or get recommended something, and I'll check it out and I immediately go click on their profile and see if they are a fit for me. And if they are, then I subscribe. And so I want you once again to ground yourself with this. Don't rush, think about it, and implement some of this. Make sure that people know who they're going to trust. And be confident with who you are and what you are putting out there. And if you're willing to send things to people or help create a literary renaissance, then I need you, everyone. So thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys got something out of this video. I wish I could have done more profiles. Like I said, that could be another video where I have people send me their Substack profile and I kind of do a roast or just kind of look through and see if I can identify what you're doing as if I was a random person. And all right, thank you guys for being here, and I will see you guys very soon in the next video.